Hello and namaste, friends. I'm Supriya, founder of Seva, and in today's episode, we have a really special guest joining us. Dr. Desikachar, Kausthub Desikachar, is the grandson of Tirumalai Krishnamacharya, whose lineage we teach at Seva Yoga. Dr. Desikachar is the only successor of Tirumalai Krishnamacharya right now. He's got 20 plus years of teaching and conducting workshops experience around the globe. He's really famous for the Viniyoga programs, and he is the current lineage holder of the Krishnamacharya school. He is also very well known for his yoga therapy and healing and spiritual advisory services. And his main objective is all about teaching yoga to the modern era and building bridges between different healing modalities to promote physical, emotional, social, and spiritual health. Welcome, Kausthub.
Thank you so much, Supriya, for those kind words. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah, it's a delight. It's actually been 12 years, would you believe it, that I last saw you when I was studying at KYM. Yeah.
Wow, 12 years is a long time.
Yeah, and it's a long time, and it's great that you've made some time for me today to talk to us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. 12 years ago, I was much younger, but not necessarily much more wiser. So.
Yes, actually, this is the reason why I thought, you know what, let's bring the person who can be like the voice, the mentoring voice for the community that we've got going here. Because, you know, the Krishnamacharya lineage, you know, has supported me and so many people in the world that have followed the lineage. It's supported us long term. You know, it's not something that we've ever lost touch with. So it's got a lot of power in it. And I thought, you know, why not hear it from the horse's mouth? And why not get Kausthub to speak on it? Because I saw your LinkedIn posts about why yoga doesn't get taken seriously. So it was very interesting because I've had similar thoughts, and I think most teachers today in this day and age with the boom in the yoga industry try our best to instill the values of yoga as a lifestyle tool rather than just an exercise regime, but somehow it gets lost, you know. So yeah, so I wanted to ask you a few questions. Would you be okay with that?
Of course, my dear, and that is why I'm here. So go for it. Go for your questions. Thank you. I'll do my best to answer it as far as possible, as good as possible. That's it. I'll do my best.
I know. I'm so like to the point. Let's get to it. I don't want to say hello, how are you, or anything like that. I just want to shoot my questions and get the job. I'm kidding. So like reading your blogs and your opinions and your perspectives, I was wondering if you could share a little bit about what's if you could have a rant about the yoga industry today, what are you most unhappy about? What would you fix about it, or what would you do? Is there anything like that?
Well, it depends how much you want me to rant, how much time we have. But the thing is, I'm not so sure if I can fix it, because I'm not so sure if I am so powerful or so great to fix it. However, I don't feel that it's my responsibility. My responsibility is to invite students of yoga, colleagues in yoga, teachers in yoga, to start reflecting about what kind of respect that they would like yoga to have in the eyes, in the hearts of people around the world. And I think that is the biggest problem with the yoga today, is that really most people around the world have not yet taken yoga very seriously. They know that yoga is popular, blah, 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 but they really don't take it something as very, very serious. And there are a number of reasons for this. I go about this in great detail with 10 videos on my YouTube channel. If people are interested, they can watch. But some of the first few things that come to mind is, first and foremost, that yoga is portrayed mostly 96, 97, 98% of the yoga is portrayed only as some kind of stretching exercises. I don't even want to call it physical exercises. I just call it like stretching exercises. So that's very, very unfortunate, because yoga is something much, much more sophisticated than that. It's something much more sophisticated for the mind, for our spirit. But unfortunately, a lot of people perceive or present and teach yoga only as a physical stretching exercise. And this has to change somehow. And the second problem with the yoga situation today is that there's a lot of uneducated people in the yoga teaching industry, because yoga is presented as something that you can become a teacher with 200 hours, with 100 hours, even with 75 hours. You have instructor programs and things like that. And that is a great disgrace to the tradition of yoga, because yoga is a science that requires a lot of time to study, a lot of time to evolve and understand and mature with. And it is certainly something that should not be reduced to even 500 hours of teaching. And unfortunately, that is what has happened in the last 25, 30 years, when all these organizations of yoga started presenting standardized teacher training programs, and the quality, they have really dropped because they made it into a commercial venture. And I think that is why we have a number of people now who are completely uneducated. I actually wrote about this some time ago, when you look at the last 100 years, when my grandfather started teaching in the early 1920s, which is about 100 years ago, there were so few yoga teachers in India. You could count probably in a handful of, there were a handful of people, literally. There were some people like Krishnamacharya, there was Swami Shivananda, there was probably Swami Kuvalayananda, Swami Yogendra. There were probably like 4 or 5 people who were teaching yoga in the whole of India, who were well-known yoga teachers. But the quality of knowledge they had was extremely high. They were not your average superfluous yoga teachers. They were really what you call pioneers. They were the gold standard of yoga at that time. Now, turn that 100 years over, and you have millions and millions of yoga teachers now around the world who all have a 200-hour certificate or more. That's it. And if you look at the educational standard, that is really a very, very big drop in standard over a 100-year period. It's a big standard drop. And that's the other problem with the yoga. So these low educated teachers of yoga, when they spread, then they create a lot of misinformation, and more importantly, they create a lot of injuries to people. And that is the other reason why yoga is also not taken seriously, because there's a lot of yoga related injuries that are happening around the world. So that's 3 to start with. Then there is also problems like cultural appropriation. You see, the colonial mindset has also entered yoga, because all these traditional colonizing countries from the West, they think that they can just take and do whatever they want with whatever they want to do. So they think that they are Indiana Jones or James Bond, and then just you can just go wherever they want, take whatever they want, and shoot whatever they want, and that is what they are doing. To yoga as well. So you have many things like dog yoga, beer yoga, naked yoga, this yoga, that yoga, goat yoga, and all these kind of things that have come about from the West, which have nothing to do with yoga at all. And this is another big problem because the public is completely dazzled because we want people to take yoga seriously, but then how can you take yoga seriously when you are having such kind of total culturally misappropriated versions of yoga? So this is another major reason I saw when I travel around the world. Many people kept asking me the questions. I mean, I would meet common folk and talk about yoga because I'm a yoga teacher. These kind of doubts and questions were there so much in the minds of people. So I think these are some of the big challenges in yoga. And again, the other major challenge I would say is that yoga is kind of removed from its roots of Maharishi Patanjali's teachings. Actually, 90% of yoga teachers around the world don't even know who is Patanjali or even what is the Yoga Sutra. I remember when I announced a teaching of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra in in America. One lady called me to ask if both teachers would be present, and I said, "Which teachers are you talking about?" And she said, "Oh, I was thinking about whether Pat and Jolly will be there because she thought it was Pat and Jolly." I'm not exaggerating at all. This is happened, and this was a yoga teacher who was teaching yoga for 10 plus years from the United States. So that's another problem we have, is that there has been a disconnection from the roots of yoga. And I think all these are the major problems facing yoga. And all these yoga organizations from the West, especially like the Yoga Alliance or the IAYT or Yoga Australia you have there, they don't do any justice to yoga. They're just business organizations. They're only registries collecting money, and they think that they are the yoga police when they don't know a clue about what is yoga. And I think this is the problem today, where many people are misguided by even these organizations. They get confused. And I think that is the great difficulty we have in the yoga field today. And there's many more, but I think these are the major challenges we are facing today. And I think that is what is the issue.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a head full of problems, eh? But I took
just a start.
But it strikes, every one of those things you mentioned strikes a chord in my heart, and I think it's true. It resonates because even though, you know, I think in the West we sort of, we like to water things down so that it's more digestible for many. So sometimes, I mean, I'll share one of my examples. The other day, I was coaching a health coaching client, and she is doing a teacher training online. And when I asked her about the Panchamaya Koshas, no idea what it is. Or the sutras, no idea. So I thought, this is really, really bad, and we need to step on it, because we need to all speak on it, because that is not yoga. Then you're not in touch.
And that is another problem also, since you talk about it, with the modern yoga, which is that because people don't have the traditional learning, they try to understand and explain yoga through modern medicine or modern medical anatomy and physiology, which is like a blind following the blind. Because if you think about it logically, when Patanjali presented yoga 2,500 or 3,000 years ago, modern medicine did not exist. So the asanas are not based on modern science. the asanas are based on the traditional understanding of the human body according to yoga, according to Ayurveda, according to the Upanishads, etc. They are not based on the modern science. So if you try to explain an asana through, gluteus maximus and things like that, it doesn't make any sense, because that is not how yoga was intended to be. And that is part of the problem, which is what I call the new age mumbo jumbo. People try to fill the gaps in their knowledge with some information from medicine, some information from psychology, some information from some new age theories. And I think they present a very confused version of yoga to their students. And I think that's why many students are also disillusioned. Many students are misinformed, and it creates a lot of injuries. So many of these organizations that are insisting on trying to understand yoga through Western medicine are actually doing a grave injustice to yoga and their students. And they are actually exploiting and abusing the students of yoga by doing so. And I think they need to be brought to justice. And I hope there will be a system in the future where this can be addressed. But unfortunately, that is the case right now. And I think that is also coming from an imperial mindset where these people think that they can just do whatever they want and get away with it. And that is not right. And I think that is where certain traditional schools have to put up certain standards. When you look at Buddhism, for example, or Chinese medicine, for example, you don't have this kind of watered down approach. A Buddhist school is not acknowledged to be a Buddhist school unless it can trace its origins back to the Buddha or through some of the ancient bodhisattvas. Otherwise, you will not really be considered a Buddhist school. And I think that is what we need in yoga as well. The same with traditional Chinese medicine. Traditional Chinese medicine is not mixing modern medicine understanding into its system. It is presenting its system from its own understanding. And that is what is needed in yoga. We don't need the Western medicine to influence yoga. It has its own sphere of influence. I mean, that's what it should stay with. It should stay within its scope, and yoga should stay within its scope. And that is what we need right now.
Can I ask something then? I mean, when it comes to the Western standards of practice, we've got a lot of, compliance to adhere to. So I think that's one of the main reasons why they bring in the 20-hour standard of anatomy and physiology lesson, right? About understanding how to safely practice or understanding how to manage your body's parts and having an understanding basically, right? So, and at the end of the day, your scope of practice is still instructing, right? Instructing your yoga postures or practices. But that is one of the biggest reasons why I think they reach for the modern science approach to body, the body's parts or tracking the body. So how do you feel we should navigate that there is such a risk to injury? There is a risk to injury.
There is a fundamental problem in this situation, which is that there is the belief that everybody can be a yoga teacher. Now, I don't agree with this. Everybody can practice yoga, but everybody cannot teach yoga. Because yoga teaching requires a lot of years of study. It requires a high level of intelligence and intellect. So when you look at the medical schools attract the top brains of the country. They will join the medical school because a person who is not very intelligent cannot be a very good doctor, because there's so much to study, so much to remember, so many complications that the body can have, that the diseases can offer, that as a person who does not have a high level of intelligence cannot really become and function as a good medical doctor. And the medical education is so long. It's not enough if you do the basic medical qualification, which is at least 5 years in most countries. You have to do an MD after that, which is 2 or 2.5 years. And then you have to do an internship as well for at least a year or year and a half. So it's about 7, 8 years of study to be a doctor. A yoga teacher's education should be at least that long, if not longer, because in yoga, we need to have so much time to learn, because there is so many things to learn, and we need practical internship to learn. I was so fortunate. I had a long years of internship with my father. So it's difficult to answer that question, because I don't believe in this approach that everybody can be a yoga teacher and everybody has to like do this 200-hour or 100-hour program, because that's more like a business. In our tradition, we are asking people to at least do 750 hours for the basic training, after which we are asking them to do another 1,200 hours to do another training, to be able to start teaching people individually, one-to-one. So we are not really looking at masses and reaching out to the masses, and that's why our tradition also attracts only the intelligent students of yoga, not your average Joe who can just maybe function as an instructor. And that is the danger, because when you put out so many instructors and teachers of yoga with not very high qualification, then it creates a lot of problems. So we need to rethink the whole education around yoga and start thinking about, not just thinking about, oh, 200 hours, how to standardize, 500 hours, how to standardize, but rather look at what is needed to be a yoga teacher, and what maybe even have a set of interviews and exams to choose people. For my trainings, I always have a selection process of who can be enter the program, not even graduate, enter the program. Not everybody who applies gets into my programs. And some people think that it is a bit, what do you call, discriminative, but we don't discriminate based on gender or race or religion or whatever, but we do make certain requirements based on intelligence standards or commitment standards, etc. Because for somebody who has to spend so many years of study, they need to commit. They can't be jumping from one place to another in order to collect information, because information is not going to help in our teaching. It's maturity, it's wisdom, how we use the information, and that requires some amount of intelligence. And that is very, very important. And I think that is why we need to rethink the standard that yoga teaching is not for everybody. Yoga practice can be for everybody, but yoga teaching must be for a very, very intelligent, committed, patient, mature, and wise people. It can't be for everybody, because then it creates a lot of problems. So, and you have this in medicine, everybody cannot get into medicine. The same with certain very...
Yeah.
Anywhere in the world, there is a selection process for medicine.
Yes, yes.
So why should we be different for yoga? Yoga is not such a low standard. I mean, it's very high standard. To understand the sutras of Patanjali requires an intelligent brain. It's not possible for people to understand, everybody to understand the sutras. And so we need somebody who is intelligent to understand. That's when there will be lesser injuries as well, harm as well.
Yeah, I just for the listeners and the viewers, I feel the word intelligence could be, broader as well within the scheme of things that you're describing. Would it include things like fitness, physical, life fitness, the circumstances of life? Does it support you to grow in this way, etc., isn't it? So it's the fitness.
It does include circumstances of life, but circumstances of life you can never predict. But how an individual responds to the circumstances of life, is the person overwhelmed and collapses, or are they able to respond and to the challenge and say, okay, you know what, there's a challenge now, let's see how we can overcome this challenge. That capacity is needed.
Yes,
For
capacity.
somebody to be a yoga teacher, because challenges will happen to everybody in the world. There's no one person in this world who doesn't have a challenge. It's how we respond to it that shows our intelligence.
Mm. I could ask so many more questions about that statement itself, but to help us kind of keep it to the points that we would talk about today is, going back to the surge of, this industry going into the direction of everybody can get a certificate to teach nowadays, where there's no such thing as validation anyway, because you can't really validate the fact that you are, it comes down to the industry also, because here I'm talking about the West. The West has the fitness industry, and the fitness industry has some standards and some sort of, we call it work health and safety regulations, and insurance companies that will, insure you if you have certain certificates to say, yes, okay, they've done the minimum requirement to get insured. Now, what you do in your classroom, no one watches you. And what you do with your clients, no one watches you until there is a claim or a complaint or a mishap. Not only just injurious to you, but your clients and maybe your, sense of a dream getting crashed, right? But at the end of the day, there's a lack of mentorship as well, so I mean, like you said, we can't solve the whole world's problem. That this is this is not going to stop, I don't think, for until something really catastrophic happens, maybe. However, because the world is full of all, it's full of polarities, full of different types of variations to things, I feel for people that want to do it the way that is for the lifelong process, because as teachers we also grow, and we ourselves get into this. I mean, I got into it because firstly I wanted to heal myself, I wanted to develop myself. It was never in my plan to go and become a yoga teacher, and those values got instilled at Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandiram. No one would give me the pass to go, right, yeah, in a month's time you're qualified, and I love that, because it conditions you to stop thinking of some fruits, but also helps you to remain strong in your conviction that, yeah, I want this wisdom, I want this knowledge. And that is a patience that I'm seeing not many people have in the West, because that patience, like, we're in the world of instant gratification, like, dislike, heart, laughter, etc. So, and popularity also plays a part in it, because there's a lot of big groups of people that go to these big teachers, but then no one gets the attention that we got. We get the attention, the one-on-one connection with the teacher, the code. Yeah, so that's all missing.
I know, but I don't worry about it too much, because I really think that we will get the students that we deserve.
Yeah, thank you.
And
Yeah.
if we live with integrity, and if we live by the value system that we represent, we will attract those people who will resonate with such value systems, who will resonate with such kind of integrity and things like that. And that's why I am very fortunate and so blessed that I have a set of wonderful, wonderful students around the world who resonate with my value system and who are committed to the path of yoga within this value system. And they are not jumping like monkeys jump from one tree to the other. They're not jumping from one teacher to the other, or one tradition to the other, or one shop to the other of yoga. They are committed, and commitment is very, very essential for becoming a yoga teacher. And I think that is why I'm not so worried about it, because all these famous people or all these fitness people you call, they may attract people in the short term, numbers of people, but there may not be the transformation that is needed. And that is not going to sustain yoga. Yoga is going to be sustained by those who are committed. If you look at Patanjali himself, Patanjali only had 4 students. Jesus only had 12 students, or 13 if you include Mary Magdalene, who is very important. But they survived, the teaching survived for 2,000, 3,000 years. And those are the people who will sustain yoga as well, the ones who are committed. And I think we should not worry too much about those who are jumping here and there, because they will find the teacher they deserve, and the teachers will find the students they deserve. This has been my personal experience, and I also used to be concerned about this issue, but now I don't, because I see that there is such a strong student body that I am surrounded with, which is not necessarily thousands in number, but at least they are so committed.
Beautiful.
They are so committed, and that is the most important thing. I recently met a group of them in Barcelona, and they came to be with me, to study with me for 3 days only, from all over the world, not only Europe, but there was a person coming from Israel to Barcelona, somebody coming from Atlanta to Barcelona, somebody coming from Chile to Barcelona. I mean, there were people willing to travel across continents to come during a pandemic time only to spend 3 days of learning, which I think shows the kind of commitment. And I think that is why I really don't worry about it. We will get the students we deserve. And that's why we have to start representing the values that we want to represent. And then we will attract those who will resonate with that values. I think we should not worry about it too much.
So can I ask, what kind of age group of people do you work with normally? What's the age group?
I have students all through the, how do you say, the age groups. I have teenagers. I have teenagers studying with me. I have a young man now from Estonia, for example. He is about 17 years now. His name is Erki. He started studying with me or taking yoga classes with me since he was 8 or 9 years old, and he's continuing even now. Now he's a young man. He's a teenager. I think next year he will be eligible to vote. I have students in the 20s, in the 30s, in the 40s, all the way to one student actually in Australia. She is an 84-year-old lady living all by herself in New South Wales, and she's also my student. So I have people all across the spectrum of ages, but most of the people are between the group of 30 to like 60s. But we do have people outside of this age group as well. And I recently started seeing more and more younger people are coming to this tradition, because they are also starting to realize that what they're seeking, the answers, is not really found in all these, what I call the New Age yoga traditions, because they don't want stretching. They are anyway young and fit. So they are looking for something much more deeper.
What's the core program you're teaching these, or is there different things that you're offering them?
There's a wide range of things that people come to me for. I mean, there are people who come to me for teacher training or for the therapy training that we offer. Or the mentoring. Many people are taking mentoring with me, where they meet me every month for a private one-by-one class. Many people come to me for yoga therapy, one-to-one therapeutic class, where they come, where usually they come with the most severe problems which nobody else has been able to help. in the field of yoga therapy, I do have a reputation where they say that you go to Kausthub and nobody else is able to help you. So they come to me as the last resort. And so I get usually the most complicated problems, which has not been helped through Western medicine or psychotherapy or any other method. So people come to me for very, very difficult problems, spiritual problems, emotional problems, uh, fertility problems, people who have not been able to have children for 15 years, and then there is medical people don't help, and they've tried in vitro 3-4 times, but then they come to yoga, they are sent to me for classes, and I help them with practices. So people come for this wide range of let's say services is not a word I want to use, but opportunities to study. And I think that is my fortune as well, because I'm really grateful that I meet so many amazingly interesting people because of this. So many, and I don't advertise. I'm just it's word of mouth usually.
Yeah. So is it what have you done in the pandemic? Have you switched it all online, or how are people from
the pandemic? I am doing mostly the mentoring and the yoga therapy work online. I have given a pause to my trainings. Recently, there are now limited travel opportunities, I have been able to travel to Europe and resume some of my trainings, some modules of my training, because my trainings are always number of modules. I just conducted one module in Barcelona in December. So I think slowly the face-to-face teaching will also start this year. I'm very optimistic about it. Yeah. But the long-term training during the pandemic, I had paused, but I had focused mostly on online classes for some kind of workshop, sometimes some kind of, mostly the therapeutic work and the mentoring work I have been able to continue. So I design practices and I send them practices through the email, and
right.
I use some of my beautiful fountain pens for that. And
Yes. Yes, guys, Kausthub has a collection of 40 classical pens, fountain pens, and he has named each
40
of them.
plus.
Oh,
I'm
40
not,
plus. He's got a farm of pens.
but the thing is, I want to tell you, the thing is, every pen that I use, here is a small sample. Every pen I use, I charge it with a different energy. So every time I get it, I charge it with a different energy. Say, for example, this one is with one of the Indian deities, Narasimha, and on the top is the Sri Yantra. So each one has a different energy. So depending on the person's problem,
Wow.
I use that pen, which will also contribute to their healing. Look, there's one here. This is a very, very special one that has, I don't know if you can see it, Mr. Ganesha.
Wow. Yeah, it's beautiful.
So
How
if people have Mooladhara problems, I will be tempted to use this pen. So I do use these not only as a hobby of collecting or whatever, but actually I use it as instruments for my healing as well. So that's why I don't allow anybody else to use these pens as well, because I don't want to mix the energies. So it's something that is very important in my healing work as well. And every time when I draw the practices, I always write down the name of the pen that was used to write that practice. So so that people know which pen I used, and I can always go back to it. So for example, here's a sample practice I give for a student. And if you look at the bottom there, I don't know if it's, there's the pen. That's the name of the pen. Gajendra is the elephant pen that I just showed, the Ganesha's pen, because Gajendra is one of the names of Ganesha as well, the king of elephants. So That's one of the reasons why the therapy also is quite powerful, because it's energetically charged as well. And even the practice sheets I have, there are some mantras that have been inscribed on the back of the sheet, so that also supports the student in the healing. There are some healing mantras that are written on the back as well. So it's how traditionally yoga was meant to be. I mean, not with fountain pens, but with energetic infusion in the healing, because ultimately in yoga we are working with prana, with energy, not with the physical body. So in every way possible, we have to bring a quality of energy into the healing, into the teaching, into the practice. And I think that is what is the magic of yoga, is prana. It's really the most powerful tool in yoga is prana. It's not physical body, it's energy.
Can I ask you a quick question about that then? What are some of the ways you discovered your tool, your own way to use your prana? Like, what was some of the catalysts, or how did you find it?
I'm not, it's not my own way. I think this is something that is very fundamental to yoga. I told you at the beginning, I was so lucky and privileged, actually. It's a great honor that I had the long-term internship and mentoring under my father for yoga. I used to observe him in thousands of classes over so many years of observing. And what I saw was very fascinating. My father would be so different with each person. It was like completely different. And in the beginning, I thought, okay, I was intellectualizing it completely, saying, okay, you know what? He's trying to reach different people at their level, or he's trying to reach different people from their understanding and their circumstance. But as I became more mature in my years as a yoga teacher, I realized that what he was doing was he was offering a different energy to each of these people. And that's what mattered. Even the same person at different instances, he would offer them something different. And what I could feel was he was embodying a different energy at that time of the class. And I think, and he would bring about that in so many different ways. And I think that is what is the magic of why he was such a successful healer, because you don't heal with techniques, you heal with energy. And that's what I'm seeing now when many of my students come. I don't tell them, I always remind them the practice is one part of your healing, but our interaction and the energy you put into the practice is what is the main healer. And this is what happens. And I think that's what one of my students, she is actually from Europe, she told me, look, there are so many people who are trying to steal the tradition of yoga by just taking the techniques, but they will never be able to take that energy from you. And that is what makes you so special. And I think that's what is important. It's the energy that is important, the energy we give to everybody. And that's what many yoga teachers forget, because they don't want to give energy. Many yoga teachers want to suck energy from their students. And that's why they look at students as products. Okay, how much dollar can I get from this, rather than giving energy? And I think that is a very, very big difference. And that's why some people will not succeed.
Yeah, so I think like I get you. Thank you so much for articulating that so nicely, because I understood prana once I got into Ayurvedic wisdom, that's where intentionality came into play, and the wisdom of all sorts of types of therapies, and what is the intention behind it, what's right for this person is not right for that person. Anyway, but yeah, it's a lived experience also. That's what I was trying to ask you, that what are sort of the personal experiences that led you to maturing, and actually starting to trust yourself as a healer, as a practitioner. I don't think you can intellectualize it. It's a feeling, right?
It's very, very difficult. It's very, very difficult to intellectualize it. But one of the things that actually is so important, and it has happened for me uh, in the last few years, is um, I have to move down from the head to the heart. Because in the field of yoga, in Ayurveda, in Chinese medicine, in the field of spirituality, and even in medicine, in a doctor, in a medical field, things like intuition and insight are all so essential, which are things that many, many people are afraid to talk about in the modern times. Like in medicine, a doctor cannot say, I'm using my intuition. They have to use science. And this is why they are so afraid of words like intuition, insight, and all that. And I get it, because sometimes people confuse imagination to intuition, and then it can lead to a whole set of problems. But for me, there has been a number of events that happened in my life where slowly, one after the other, they taught me to move down from the head to the heart. Because let me tell you, I am a scientist. I have done my PhD studies, and I went to the best university in India for my master's degree. So it's not that I'm not a scientist. I get it. I get the science. But I also saw that science is limited. And in order for us to enter higher levels of consciousness, higher levels of personal growth and personal transformation, science is not enough. There are lots and lots of limitations in science. And that's when you have to move down from the head to the heart and follow intuition, follow insight. You need play moments of silence. You need moments of daily practice. People underestimate the power of daily practice. And that's part of the problem also with a number of yoga teachers. They don't practice, they just teach. And they think teaching, huh?
Yeah, exactly. It's time. They go back to selling hours for dollars, and it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, and there are so many yoga teachers I know, even who are running big ashrams and big schools. They don't practice. And they keep telling me they don't have time to practice. And I'm thinking, look, if you can't give yourself time to practice, how do you expect your students to give you time to practice or to practice with you? And I think that is the power of personal practice is so important. It's very important to move down and practice not in a narcissistic way, but practicing as a prayer, because body is a temple and practice is the prayer. And we need to practice with that attitude that we honor our body, we honor the spirit in our body, we honor the divine in our body, rather than do it as, okay, you know what, I want big muscles or big buttocks or whatever, like people do things like that. And I think that is also something that will help each person to come closer to their heart, to feel all these sophisticated technology that we have been given with, like intuition, insight, etc. And that is why that is where the shift happens from a materialistic way of looking at the body to a more spiritual way of looking at the body. And this is very important.
I don't know. I'm just so happy to hear those words spoken again and again. I mean, I will replay that line or verse just to know there's an echo out there. But thank you. I just have one more question that I was really curious to also bring to light to the audience and the world out here. You've been a part of this long lineage. So have you ever been curious about any other lineages?
Because of the position of myself in this tradition, my father and my grandfather in the tradition, I've been very fortunate to meet many other yoga teachers from other traditions because they've always come to our homes or we have visited them, etc. So I'm very well aware of many of these other traditions, and I've had the great privilege to meet masters of these other traditions. So I'm not insulated from that. However, I have not ever had the temptation to try other traditions because I've actually found all the answers within this tradition. See, that's also one thing that I want to tell people to reflect about people is why do people come to yoga? Not there's something unconscious or subconscious in each person who comes to yoga that there is a spiritual search. Because if it was only for physical fitness, they can go to the gym, they can go jogging, they can go swimming, they can go to aerobics, they can go to any number of avenues through which they can develop their physical system. But there's something in them subconsciously searching for something spiritual, something missing that they want to find an answer to. That is what draws them to yoga. And many people, they practice a particular tradition for some time, they find some answers, but then they don't find some answers. And that's why either they stop yoga or they get disillusioned and try some other yoga or things like that. So for me, I have actually also had this spiritual search. I'm a seeker first and foremost, and whatever answer I needed, I found in my own tradition through either the practices or through discussion with my teacher, my father. And so I never got the temptation to try some other tradition because I am having the answer. However, if there comes a moment where I'm not able to find an answer within my tradition, I'm not closed to looking for it elsewhere because we must keep our minds open and not be too closed. But right now, I am finding all the answers, and so I don't need to look elsewhere. Hey.
Well, this is good. Say the thing is that value system is also there from the time you're born into this family, right? But what about people that are out there that have no other influence than just a teacher?
I want to underplay this whole issue about the family, because many people think that, oh, it's easy because you are part of the family. It's not necessarily a given that just because you are born in a family, it is going to be like that. For instance, my grandfather had 6 children, of which only 2 were yoga teachers, my father and my uncle, Sri Bhashyam, who lived in France. The remaining 4 did not turn out to be yoga teachers or not so seriously interested in yoga. So just because, and this is Krishnamacharya's children. So just because you are part of a family, it doesn't mean that it is automatic. We must remove that mindset. And secondly, I mean, if people would only know the truth, it is actually more challenging if you are part of a family like this because the expectations on you are much more higher. For instance, my father made it much more difficult for me to learn yoga than he would for those who are outside of the family. I was tested much more than other people because my father really wanted to be convinced that I was serious and not just casually interested just because it was easily accessible. So many people have this misconception that just because you are part of the family, somehow it's easier. It's not really true. It's not really true. People don't know the other side. They don't know. And can people imagine being, I mean, when I grew up, being under the hawk eye of my father 24 hours a day? Who will want that? Which Western student will want to be under the observation of their teacher 24 hours a day? They will freak the shit out. Excuse my language, but they will freak the shit out. They don't know how difficult that is, and they think that that's a bloody easy privilege and it's all comes very easily. No, it's like living under a psychotherapist 24 hours a day. I mean, they find it difficult to meet a psychotherapist for 1 hour 3 times a week. They would panic if they were under the same roof with a psychotherapist 24 hours a day. So people should stop making that assumption that it's actually easy if you are part of a family. It's not at all. In fact, I would even say that it is the opposite.
You have answered the question to the depth that I think anyone can catch on. That the fact is, as you mentioned, that we first need commitment from within. That's, if that's not there, let's not even try. and the path of yoga tests you anyway. Plus, if you're born into your family, then you got grilled every day.
Exactly. Every day.
Yeah, I hear you. Thank you for sharing that. What just quickly, what are you working on at the moment for fun? Or what are you doing for fun at the moment?
For fun?
Yeah.
Like right this moment, I am having fun having this conversation with you. But if you ask me generally what I do for fun, I am a very, very passionate photographer. So that is my great love and hobby. And that's something that I do. And I'm also a very, very passionate writer. So I write poems, I write articles and things like that. So this is another hobby of mine, which is writing. So I'm always doing something or the other. I don't know if it's for fun, but for inspiration, I will say, because photography sometimes is not fun. You have to you have to wake up so early in the morning. Sometimes you have to drive so far, and then you have to stand for hours waiting for the little bird to come and sit on the boat. And sometimes you have to stand, you have to go to the most difficult location so that you get a very nice picture. People don't see the other side of the picture. And that's also, but it's inspiring. It's inspiring.
Beautiful. Well, that's inspiring for us to hear as well. So where can people connect with you, or do you work with one-on-one still? Did you say you still work?
Of course, I work with one-on-one all the time. If people want to work with me one-on-one, I will send you a short link to one of my one-on-one classes, and you can just share it with people. I will share it to you in this chat if you want, or I will share it with you on your...
Yes, I'll grab that off you, and I'll actually put it in the comments section, description section of our video and our podcast for our viewers and listeners. Yeah. So did you enjoy speaking with us and our audience?
I'm very happy to have this conversation. It was great fun. Thank you so much.
And I hope you'll join us again, Kausthub, very soon.
Sure. Let me know. We have a number of hot topics to discuss.
I'm going to hit rewind and take notes. Well, folks, I hope you feel clearer about some of the importance that we should be giving to yoga. What did you think? Did you think that this information was useful? Did it give you direction? please keep the conversation going and leave some comments in the comments box so we can get back to you. And I'll also attach Kausthub's details so that you can also learn from him at KHYF. That's where you'll find him, and I'll also include all the details, as I said. So thank you so much, Kausthub, for your time and energy and your beautiful spirit. Great to reconnect with you after 12 years.
It's an auspicious sign.
Yes, it is. It is.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you for the laughter. Have a really nice day over there. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
guys.